1-0 early, able to make a little bit of a comeback early.
And that's the one thing I've noticed about this Cal State Fullerton team is they're never out of a set. Every set, one of the most impressive athletes when it comes to that is Milena Gevorgian. Milena Gevorgian, in multiple instances, has been down 2-5, has been down 1-4, and has fought back and got into those tiebreaker sets and has got the wins. It feels like if it's coming down to the end of a match, this Cal State Fullerton team wants her on the court.
Yeah, and of course, Fullerton currently, or as we move over to court number 3, which is going to be that dynamic duo of Taylor and Yu versus De Simone and Paulina Franco, the one upperclassman on this Long Beach very young squad. Currently, Long Beach is up 2-1. So you did mention that Taylor and Yu, not common to see them trailing early.
Yeah, but it's also a team I expect to really make the comeback and kind of figure out who they're playing. I feel like a big part of tennis and doubles in general is really about your matchup and really kind of finding out how the people you're playing against, because no matter what you have on film or what you have in your notes about a team that you're facing, right, you really don't feel it till you're out there and you get to really see how they're hitting it, how they're playing you as a team. And that's where you got to really, as a doubles team and as a coach, come over and explain to your team, hey, play like this. As you can see, Ellie Johnson's coming out to this doubles team and really giving her perspective on how she's seeing things. And I love to see that from coaches.
And you see her right there congratulating her players a little bit. That was a very successful rally right there. But I think we've already talked about it a little bit, but just having a young coach who really is invested in this team, and also a young assistant coach as well, also in his first season with the program. So, I mean, I think it goes a long way when you can have a coach that is just as invested. Because, I mean, unfortunately with some like other Cal State Fullerton sports this year, it was a tough year for basketball. And, you know, I think when you have a coach like this, at least for tennis, a sport that's very underappreciated, I think it's good to see such a young, at least a coach that has so much energy for her squad.
100%. I think it really is a testament to Ellie and the athletes buying in and really coming together. This team is such a, I know it's so corny to say, but such a family unit. We talk to the players, they love each other. They're always hanging out together. They're going out to dinners. They're going out to the beach. They're a really team that comes together. They also went to the most recent tennis tournament that was in California, which doesn't happen often, with the tennis being more of a tour sport, being a worldwide sport. You don't get to do that often. So the team getting to go and watch that tournament together, they're really buying in and growing that love for each other. And for such a young team, that's so important, because then recruits see that and other players see that, and the team just becomes a whole. And we always talk about tennis as like an individual sport, using air quotes, because it's such a series of one-on-ones, but you can hear the players talking to each other.
Exactly.
They're cheering each other on. You're always looking at the scoreboard to see how your teammates are doing, and it's a big team sport. If you ever get the chance to go down there, you can hear the players when someone goes down, oh, come on, you got it, and I think that's really important that this team does.
All right, we have an update for you at Court 3, where Taylor and Yu have now tied it at 2 apiece.
And that's what we were kind of talking about and kind of expecting, is this team's going to get on a roll. As on Court 1, Sayan Mi-young and Milena Gevorgian go up 3-1, which is something you really love to see from this team who's been struggling, really being able to bounce back. And I really, truly believe that the way that this Fullerton team can win in dominant fashion over and over again is to get those wins in doubles. Because they're a team that just thrives in the singles, that if you get a free point in doubles and you're up 1-0, you only have to win half your matches in singles, and I think Cal State Fullerton can and will do that in majority of their matches this year.
They certainly can. And, you know, we were talking earlier how it's so rare to see you and Taylor fall behind, but then you mentioned they quickly respond. So 2-2 over there. I do want to see an update on court number 2, though, because it's been a struggle for Nikitash and Yanotovskaya. They've lost their last 3 doubles matches. It was a close matchup against UC Davis. They lost 4-6. They went unfinished at Dartmouth, obviously, because Fullerton had already won the match by that point. And then they, unfortunately, against Hawaii last week, lost 1-6. So it's been a tough go for them of late. Obviously, UC Davis, they were a lot more competitive yesterday, so it's good to see from there. But meanwhile, on court number 1, Myung and Gevorgyan are dominating Carpenter and Costa right now, up 3-1. You mentioned just a few moments ago. What have you been seeing, at least from them early on?
It's just that aggression. This doubles team in particular of Myung and Gevorgyan is such an aggressive team and such a fighting team. We always talk about, like we've been talking about today, the team that fights, the team that doesn't give up, it is these two. I feel like every match I watch from Gevorgyan and Myung, it's them fighting, it's them staying in it and really figuring out their opponent later in the match. And if they can do this early, go up 3-1, figure out their opponent, they are really, really hard to beat. As we were talking about on court 2, they are down 3-1. You would love to see them fight and get back to it, but the specialty for this Fullerton team is singles. And that's what we always end up talking about, is if they can get it together on doubles. And today it's seeming like they are. It seems like this number 1 team in particular is really clicking this morning.
Yeah, and you mentioned tours not so common for this Cal State Fullerton team, whereas for Long Beach State, Ben had a ton of tour matches. That's why Hilt Costello, has been having so many different pairs for their doubles matches. But I mean, earlier in the year, Myung and Nikitosh as a doubles did win a doubles title at the beach tennis fall tournament in Long Beach, and then some other notable in that matchup. So I mean, they do have a little bit of experience playing this Long Beach State team. Obviously, we mentioned in the round of 16 for the single, or excuse me, in the quarterfinals, actually, it was Sain Myung defeated Costa 6-5. She lost the second set 5-7, but then won the tiebreaker 7-6, of course. So,
and as we go to a break on court 1, I'd like to go see court 2, like you said, and see how this team is really coming together. Surprising fact about them winning that doubles is now it's Gevorgyan and Myung.
Mm-hmm.
So the doubles team of Nikitosh and Myung go and win a tournament doubles, but I remember there was a point early on in the season where we were in the booth and they switched it to Myung and Gevorgyan, and never question a coach is what I learned through that decision, right? Because we were like, oh, wait, they had such a role, they won that, and then Gevorgyan and Myung just took off. So Ellie Johnson does a really good job of seeing how her athletes play on certain courts with their teammates, and it's just such a beauty to see good coaching, especially in a first-year head coach at the D1 level. She is such a treat for Cal State Fullerton, and I think they're really lucky to have gotten her.
Yep, and of course, currently on court 3 right now with Taylor and Yu, actually trailing now 3-2 to De Simone and Franco. So I would say right now we've got quite an intense matchup on court number 3. It's been very back and forth so far.
And you know, that's kind of just what the Long Beach State Fullerton rivalry is. I feel like it's always a close game. It's always gritty, and it always goes the distance, I feel like, for every sport. And getting to talk to Ellie Johnson earlier, we talked to her while the girls were warming up. I asked Ellie, do the girls feel a little more pumped up today? Is it a little more of a, you can kind of feel it in the air since it's a Long Beach match? And Ellie Johnson tried to say she didn't make it be that, but the girls won it. And you can tell the Fullerton athletes in every sport want to beat the beach. It's always the biggest rivalry. It's always the match that feels more than what it is. As we tune into court 2 with Masha Nikitosh and Diana Yanatovskaya down 4-1 to Thea Yagar and Joanna Heismir.
No, it's funny you mentioned that when you were talking to Coach Ellie Johnson. I feel like a lot of athletes, we see it a lot from LeBron James, you know, they try to play that nonchalant act a little bit, and about kind of like, does this mean more for you? No, it's just a win. It's like, or it's just another game. But I mean, you have to understand, like, these are collegiate athletes. I mean, surely Cal State Fullerton has some Big West rivals, but none greater than probably Long Beach. I mean, the Beat the Beach game for basketball, of course, brings out the biggest attendance of the year. So you certainly kind of get that feeling. Even though Ellie Johnson, like, didn't quite express it, you could see the grin in her face.
I think that's just being a coach, though. You're trying to keep your players, you know, keep the adrenaline at a normal level, and you don't want to make it go too high. You don't want to make a regular season match feel more than it is, because if you run into beach in the playoffs, then it's like, whoa, this is crazy. You want to make yourself realize as a team, like, hey, yes, every match is just as important as another one. You don't want to value one over another, because if you value the Long Beach game so high, then you set yourself up to be in a letdown spot the next game because of how aggressively you attacked one game.
And they're currently taking a break on court number 2. Now, of course, that pair, Nikitosh and Yanatovskaya, been struggling of late, still struggling in this match. So we'll see if they're going to be able to. I mean, there's such a gritty team. They did lose 6-4 or 4-6, excuse me, to UC Davis yesterday. So they were able to put in a little bit of an effort. So we'll see if they're able to kind of start that comeback effort here.
And that's what I've noticed with this pairing, right, is it's two athletes that in their single sets as well usually go the distance, usually last a while, usually grind them out. And I really like the fact that they're put together, and it feels like if they can just click and get that momentum going in a match, it could snowball into more and more wins. But doubles is just such a different game than singles, right? There's more room to cover in terms of the court getting bigger, right? You have the outer lines, but there's also less room to cover because you're relying on your teammate to the other side. It depends on if you're playing aggressive at the net, which these two athletes in particular don't traditionally do. Yana Tavskaya is one of the heaviest hitters on Cal State Fullerton team. If you get to see her serve, I would be playing dodgeball out there, Colin.
No, and you mentioned with Deanna, I mean, in singles this year, she is 5-3. She's won her last singles match recently. And then even Nikitosh, like you might see 4-5 overall, but she is 2-0 in the Big West and has won her last 3 singles matches.
Ooh, really impressive right there to get to that ball in the out of bounds. Just went past the baseline. And that's one thing I feel like with this Fullerton team is they have such good coverage. It feels like no ball hit is out of reach. It always feels like they can get there at that last second. And that's what impresses me the most about this team, and I feel like it comes down to the coach. I feel like coaching really gives a team that heart and gives them that ability to fight and not give up. As we have a full scoring update over every game, it is 3-2 in favor of Sayan Miyung and Milena Gevorgian on court 1. On court 2, as you can see, it is 4-1, and on court 3, it is now 3-3 between the team of Caitlin Taylor and Seha Yu versus Paulina Franco and Diana De Simone. And partner, it's slowly looking like it's going to get real tight out here on the courts.
And I think, just like you mentioned, that's just kind of how every game has been for Cal State Fullerton. Even though doubles have not been great of late for this squad, I think it just is it's gonna come down to that match again. I mean, it came down to the number 2 match, I believe, and they're against Davis yesterday. So it's always a tight battle with this team. Now,
and I have a love-hate with it, right? Where it's like you love to see the team be able to grind out these wins, but you also want to see them get some wins in dominant fashion, because even some of the 4-1, 6-1 wins that this Cal State Fullerton team has had, it has come at the expense of tight matches where, yes, you won 6-1, but maybe 4 of the matches went to that third set and got really tight. It's just like really, it's cool to see that your team has fight, but you also want to see them get some impressive wins at some point, right?
Of course, and I mean, obviously, court 2 is 5-1 in favor of Long Beach right now, but we do have a scoring update on court number 1 with Myung and Gevorgian. They currently hold a 4-2 lead over Long Beach. So, I mean, you mentioned it. Fullerton's got the slight edge on court 1. Long Beach is dominating in court 2, and then meanwhile we've got a tight battle on court 3. I mean, couldn't have drawn it up any better to start this morning, right?
Oh, exactly. And I feel like that's been the story of doubles for this Fullerton team. Is it's always tight. It's always. I don't feel like Fullerton ever gets 3-0'd. I feel like it's always a 2-1. It's always a tight battle, whether win or lose. And you just got to be able to grind it out. And I think it's really going to come down to that third court. That third court's going to be where I think we're going to end the doubles day, if I had to take a guess.
I think you'd be correct. We're still over here on court number 2. Still currently 5-1 favor of Long Beach. Have a good rally going on right here.
And right here, you just can't. I know your back's against the wall if you're this Fullerton doubles team of Nikitosh and Yana Tavskaya, but you got to stay strong. You got to keep fighting. We've seen teams come back from these 1-5s.
Now, speaking of, we're on court number 2. Tia Hagare is actually going to be the Big West Player of the Week so far. For, obviously, we mentioned the freshman, one of the freshmen from Sweden, She competed in the ITF Sweden 04A Championships in doubles and singles. So, I mean, the international talent that Long Beach can bring in is just quite remarkable, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's an accomplished tennis player in Sweden. She fell in the round of 16 while playing with her sister in doubles, who her sister Tilde plays at Oregon, which is a Big Ten school. So it is a tennis family, right? And it's super interesting to see. I feel like we talk about it a lot in college athletics, where a lot of times these athletes have siblings that are in college sports, or their parents played. I remember against a Dartmouth game, one of the athletes had her whole family play for Dartmouth in the past, and it's super fun to just like kind of see like even these international players' families are playing college sports now against each other potentially. Ooh, way to get to that one. That was impressive.
And we do have a scoring update for you on court number 3. Taylor and you now have a 4-3 lead over De Simone and Franco. So things are really starting to get tense now.
Way to come back. And I feel like every time I'm in the booth for tennis, I'm saying that. I feel like I'm saying, oh, Fullerton, really good job of climbing back. It's their play style. They are going to try to figure out and get back there as we move to court 3 here.
The most intense match so far. This duo has won 9 of their last 10 doubles, and they've won by at least 3 in 7 of those matches. So it's quite insane what they've been able to do.
I'm just laughing because how ridiculous winning 9 out of your last 10 is. That is so impressive, especially in a sport like tennis where it's just so mentally taxing. To be able to just get out there 9 of your last 10 matches and get wins, it just shows the chemistry that they've built together, and it shows why they stick to them in that 3 spot.
And we do have a scoring update for you on court 2. Fullerton not quite going down just yet. They were able to make it 2-5.
And just impressive. Like we were saying, your back may be against the wall, but you can still come out there and get these aggressive wins. And maybe you don't win the set. Maybe you lose that match, right? Or game, sorry. And it gives you that momentum going into singles. Like, hey, we did bounce back. We did go down early, but we bounced back. We were able to get wins, and I figured out something as a player, and it clicked today. As we're going to tune back into court 2, seeing as it is the closest to ending, we have Long Beach State duo of Thea Yagare and Joanna Heismir on the close side, and on the far side you have Masha Nikitash and Diana Yanatovskaya.
Yes, and we talked about for Long Beach, I mean, they have lost 2 of their last 3 to Santa Barbara and Hawaii as well. And after this match, of course, I mentioned they're going to take a little trip up north, up in the NorCal area, in the Bay, and a little bit into the Sacramento area. They're going to be at Santa Clara University on Tuesday. They're going to be at Sac State on Wednesday, and then they will finish off their 4-game road trip at Davis. So if you're Long Beach, you're going to want to, you're of course going to want to start out strong, but you're seeing this early on court number 2.
Oh, yeah, and Cal State Fullerton played that Sac State team at home earlier in the season, and it was a 4-3 match. I remember talking before, like, hey, this Sac State team's good. Today might be a little bit of a grind. Really fought back, only lost 4-3, but it just shows, like, oh, that was the key to me watching, oh, this Fullerton tennis team has, like, a good chance to win the Big West, right? Went out there against a Sac State team and fought, and even got some wins against San Jose State, which these are really good schools. Like, that was one thing I was really impressed with Ellie Johnson is she got in late. She got hired a little late, had to do her schedule a little late, and still found a way to build a really strong schedule that was going to challenge them in the preseason. I really believe you need to challenge yourself in the preseason. A lot of teams, I feel, take bye games and take a little bit of not a break, but like ease yourself into the season. I really like the way Ellie Johnson did her schedule of tougher matches, then the bye games, then tougher matches going into Big West.
Yeah, and you mentioned hired in September, so, didn't have a whole lot of time. Obviously, with a lot of these teams, Long Beach, you mentioned, they played so many tournament matches in October and then a little bit into January as well. So, obviously with Coach Hilt Costello being with the program for as long as she has, knows her team so well, but Ellie Johnson kind of had to get a feel for this team with not a lot of time.
And I think it shows a lot when you look at the stats, right? Like, Milena Givorian's 9-3 on the year, and they have athletes that are 17-11, 15-11. They've played a lot of matches through the year, and that also just shows how deep these athletes are getting in their tournaments and shows how good they are, that they're playing more matches than most other players. And especially in a sport like tennis that is such a grind, it is such a sport you need to be athletically gifted in and have that stamina. As we tune into court 1 with Sayin Mi Young and Milena Gevorgian versus Daisy Carpenter and Cecilia Costa at 5-2 Fullerton. So Fullerton has a chance to take a point here. As you see Cal State Fullerton get a point there. Cal State Long Beach hits it off the cage. As you see assistant coach PJ going out there, has played for the Philippines national team in tennis. It's just so impressive when you get to look at these coaching staffs. I feel like that's one of the blessings we get as broadcasters, getting to talk to these elite coaches that have done so much in their careers, and now they're coming back to try to progress the game and push the game for these younger athletes. It's just super impressive. As another point for Cal State Fullerton on the serve there.
Yep, and very close to closing it out on court 1 is Cal State Fullerton.
And on court 2, partner, Masha Nikitosh and Diana Yonatovskaya make it 3-5, slowly building that back. And man, if they can come back and get a win on that court, that's going to push them so far into singles. It builds so much momentum to get a comeback win like that, and it's kind of deflating for the other doubles team, I would think.
Yeah, Nikitosh, she's won her last 3 singles matches, 2-0 currently in the Big West in those singles matches. So this comeback would, obviously, with how well she's been performing in singles matches, incredibly boost her confidence going into that later today.
And that was one thing I unfortunately brought up a little bit often, was she kind of had a strugglesome start to the year, right? Because they started her on the threes court where she, 0-5 start to the year on the threes, and Ellie Johnson made the decision to push her back, and she's 4-0 on the fours court. She really found that confidence on the fours court, and she's one of my favorite players on this team because when you get to go out there, I unfortunately didn't broadcast yesterday, had a little bit of a head injury this week. We went out there, and me and my girlfriend were watching this tennis team, and Masha Nikitosh gets after it. She is so loud. She's so animated. She'll get a point and she'll yell, "Let's go." There's very much potential if we watch her today. You can hear it through the athlete's cam that we have out there. She gets after it, and she's so aggressive, and she's so fun to watch. I think she's one of the most fun players to watch because of that attitude and that grit that she has out there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Nikitosh with how strong she is, 5'8" as well. So I mean, one of the tallest players on the team, if not the tallest. Currently, she was 5-3 in the Big West in the singles last year, and she was 15-7 overall. And then she really succeeded in that number 6 spot. You mentioned this year at the number 4. At that number 6, she was 10-4. So really able to find her spot last season and carry that over into this year, even after the slow start.
It's really nice to see these athletes click in their positions and, just find themselves. As you can see this pairing of Mi Young and Gevorgian talking here, that's the big thing I think it is for doubles. Because we're talking about singles a lot. For doubles, it's really building that camaraderie with your teammate, right? And it's really like, hey, how do you see it? How do we cover? And yes, they practice every day, and they get to practice with each other and kind of know how each other's play. But when you're out there, it matters so much to have that communication and have that chemistry with your teammate.
And you can see right here, another great rally right here. That was all...
And that'll be all she wrote for Court 1 with Cal State Fullerton's duo of Sayin Mi Young and Milena Gevorgian getting the win over Daisy Carpenter and Cecilia Costa 6-2. And that's just what you love to see from this team. Them really find it and figure it out again. They were so dominant for a while and kind of lost it, but to be able to see them find it at the beginning of Big West play is really important because everything else you have for the rest of the year is Big West, Colin.
Of course, and obviously with this victory, that was actually their first in the Big West this year. They were 0-2 previously, but obviously that's going to carry tremendous momentum as they head into singles.
Yeah, now we'll tune into this Court 2 match that is 5-3 in favor of the duo of Thea Yagare and Joanna Heismir. But that's not to say this team of Masha Nikitosh and Diana Yonatovskaya right now are on a roll. They've won the last 2 in a row after going down 5-1. That's so impressive to not be able to back down. And this team of Yagare and Heismir, did get a win against UC Santa Barbara 6-3. So this is not a bad team at all. As this court 2 is going to go to a break as well. We can tune into court 3 with Caitlin Taylor and Say Hi You versus Paulina Franco and Deanna DeSimone, which is at 4-4. And partner, called it earlier. This is the one we're potentially coming down to.
Exactly. And, if you're Cal State Fullerton, it has to be the utmost confidence in this pair right here because they've just been so dominant this year. And I think it just goes to show again the pairing between a veteran and then somebody where the pair of Nikitosh and Yanotovskaya will be taking on Higare and Heismer. And so we mentioned this earlier. They were down 5-1. Fullerton storming back, making it 4-5 deficit now. I mean, quite remarkable, and obviously it just goes to show that they have so much fight in them.
And on court 3, it is 5-4 as well in favor of Long Beach. So that one going back and forth, it feels like it's been 3-4, 4-4, 5-4. It's going back and forth. But on this court 2, it has been a grind. Nikitosh and Yanotovskaya have clicked right now and have really brought it back, which is so impressive to see. So we're going to stick here. They got a point in the break. It was 5-3 when we left, and now it's 4-5. Just so fun that this team is working this hard.
It just shows you how quick this game is, even though obviously it's such a grind and it's obviously such a sport. And you could see right there, Long Beach hit that one into the net. Fullerton was able to win that set right there. But for Fullerton, I can't mention how many times we've had to say it already. It's when you see a team that obviously has been struggling in duos, being down 5-1, you can kind of compare it to being down 3-1 in a playoff series. I mean, quite
100%.
remarkable.
It's so remarkable, and like we said, it comes down to that grit and who this team is, right? It's a team that won't give up, and it's so hard to face a team like that doesn't give up because it drains you mentally when you have to face it, where even if Long Beach can grind this out, right, these two are going to have so much confidence going into singles. It's so impressive, and it's been impressive how they did it. It feels like they just stormed back. It wasn't really like they haven't lost a step since going down 5-1. It feels like they had a conversation, they found something in that last set, and they've just grinded and went through with it.
Obviously, we mentioned that it's a tight battle over on court number 3 as well with Taylor and Yu against DeSimone and Franco. That pair of Franco and DeSimone are 2-0, and they are 1-0 in the Big West. So that pair, even though they haven't had too much experience together in doubles, has found early success.
Yeah, and finding that early success is really nice, especially in your first couple matches together, because you can lose that confidence if you lose your first 1 or 2 with a new teammate, as a great spike there from Long Beach State. Kind of got ate up right there, and there's not much you can do on a play like that. As that will end court 2 with Long Beach State taking court 2 6-4, and now it comes down to court 3, which is currently 5-4 in favor of Long Beach. We will move over there real quick. And what a way to start the morning, huh?
Yeah, we mentioned couldn't have scripted it any better than this. I mean, Long Beach obviously has had some recent struggles, but they're still such a great program. I mean, you have a coach like Hilt Costello, that is in her 30th season with the program. I mean, you just when you're able to battle against a team that has a coach with a resume like that, it kind of just shows that Ellie Johnson means business.
I mean, when you have a 68% career win percentage, it's pretty impressive. As Long Beach State takes doubles 6-4 on court 3 and will take the point total 1-0.
Well, you mentioned the fight that Fullerton has. You certainly cannot.
And Yagare, Big West Player of the Week. It'll be really impressive to see how Yanotovskaya competes with that. But we'll start our day here on court 2 with Say Hi You and Cecilia Costa.
Right, they had a little bit of a good rally right there, but just went past the baseline right there.
And Say Hi You has been super impressive in singles this year, and I feel like we're going to end up saying that about most Cal State Fullerton singles athletes, right? But she's 7-3 and has been in that 2 spot all year. Cal State Fullerton has had that 1 and 2 spot locked down with both Korean sophomores Sei Mi Young and Say Hi You.
Yeah, and you mentioned how strong Fullerton has been. 40-25 on the year in singles, 13-3 in the Big West. So I mean, just insane numbers. You feel like even though they are down, obviously they lost their doubles for the third straight match, but this team just is able to find a way, seems, every time.
Dude, that caught me off guard. I didn't realize there were 13-3 in Big West singles. That is just really impressive. And I think the athlete that is the most like Cal State Fullerton, the most like this is what you get out of this team is Milena Gevorgian. Right? She has been so impressive. She had a match win streak for a while. She's 9-3 total on the year. And that's where I think the identity of that grit that this Cal State Fullerton team is, right? They don't give up, they fight, and they finish. And I think Milena Gevorgian is the perfect example of that.
And of course, Gevorgian will be at number 5 today. As we get a look at court number 3 between Yana Tovskaya and Hagari, the matchup that you were eyeing earlier.
Yeah, partner, it's just really, really impressive. These schools, these teams, having a Big West Player of the Week here in Fullerton is so fun for us, right? We get to see arguably the best player in the Big West last week and see how she progresses and plays and just like, I don't know, me and you were out there watching warm-ups earlier, right? And I just think that's my favorite part of the job is getting here early, getting to talk to the coach and seeing how these athletes prepare. These are really elite athletes, and to see the way that they prep and the way they get ready is really, really is fun. It just shows you what it takes to be an athlete.
And of course, a lot of them up and early. I know for me, I can say I'm more of a night person, so it was a bit of a struggle for me to wake up this morning, but not for these athletes.
I was thinking about that this morning too. Their Fullerton tennis page, go give it a follow on Instagram and TikTok. It is so fun. They're posting, getting ready for the games, like 4 or 5 in the morning. They're up. They're ready. They're getting ready to go. They're getting team meals. You always see one of the assistant coaches pull up with team meals after the match. This team is really together, and that's what I love to see out of it. And I think that's what has pushed them so far this year and has made them that elite, that they trust their teammates. Yes, they may not be the best in singles, another rough day today, but in singles, or sorry, not in doubles, in singles, they are really impressive. Doubles, they've been lacking, of course. The trust in your teammates to go, oh, we might start 1-0 down, but I trust 4 of my teammates to go get that win. And you want to be the teammate that does it for your team, right? When you look up at that scoreboard, you see what your teammates are doing, and you want to do it for them, I feel like.
And you mentioned Ellie Johnson making her rounds, obviously, especially with all these matches going on. What do you think is
earlier with that intro? But again, another athlete, Nikitash, who plays with such passion, right? And I think, going back to your question of what do you think, what I think Ellie's message is, I think it's just to fight. Be yourself and play your game. Figure out your opponent, especially in a match like this, which is against Long Beach State, which means just that much more. You know, college rivalries mean so much to the school and the teams. Like we said, during the Beat the Beach game for basketball, they were handing out T-shirts on campus, and it's what it is. Fullerton, Long Beach is that rivalry, is that thing, and these players really get into it, right? And I think that's what you have to say as a coach is, yes, I understand this matters a lot, but take that deep breath. You're fine. You're going to be okay. You're going to get there. You just have to figure yourself out as an athlete.
Just getting underway for singles. No scoring updates for you at the moment, but we're going to keep you here at court 4 right now with Nikitash and Malescu.
Actually, we just got one.
Perfect
from
timing.
Our great stage assistant, Iman. And that's one thing I'll say before I do the scores. I want to say thank you to the production team for tennis. It is not an easy broadcast to run, right? You got to have somebody out there sending you the pictures, giving you the score updates. So I want to thank our director, Angela, stage assistant, Iman, for sending pictures, and everyone out here today. On court number 2, it is 1-0 in favor of Seha Yu. Court 1 and Court 3 have not had and Court 6 have not had a point yet. On Court 4, it is 1-0 in favor of Daria Malescu, and Court 5 also 0-0. So early start to the day.
Yeah, and you mentioned Iman. Shout out to him as well, because the footage that we get in our introductions, people might be wondering where we're getting that from. That is from Iman's drone. So I want to shout out Iman for putting in effort on both ends for us today and getting us that amazing footage in our introductions.
As we're going to tune back into Court 2 with Seha Yu versus Cecilia Costa, with Seha Yu having the lead. That intro, I remember the first time I did this. I was up here with Robbie Loya. Great, Robbie Loya. I love him so much. he is really becoming the voice of every sport, it feels like. He does Iman did a really good job. I was sitting there, I was like, dude, where did we get these aerial shots? And he goes, Iman brought his drone, edited that for us, and he did all of it. He brought it in, edited it, gave it to Tim. Tim did Tim Jackson things, fixed it all up, and put it up there as our intro for tennis. And I just want to say thank you to Iman. That's such a good intro. He did so amazing on those drone shots. As you can see, assistant coach PJ coming out to talk to say how you. I think that's the thing I love the most about tennis, right? Is in other sports, you can't really see the coaching staff as much. Basketball, yes, of course, but you don't really get to see the conversation. You don't get to see how much players are getting talked to. In tennis, the coaches really walk out there, walk with the players, take that time in between points to see it from their perspective and say, hey, I see you're doing this, or I see that athlete's doing that. And I think that's what's really different about tennis, is you get to really see how the coaches are talking to the players.
Well, that was an impressive rally we just saw right there on court 2. Unfortunately, you lost that set right there. But what you can say, though, is obviously she's up 1-0 early. Still no other scoring updates for you currently, but another strong start.
Yeah, and Sehayu has just had a strong start to the year, getting a win yesterday against Sophia Valentine of UC Davis as well. It's just great as we have a scoring update, and this is what we were talking about with singles. Every court but court 1 has had a point so far, and courts 2, 3, 4, and 5, Cal State Fullerton is up 1-2-0. And just an impressive start, and letting those comebacks and letting those matches and doubles really get you into singles. Yes, you don't win the point, but you got to progress and you got to push forward as an athlete and have short-term memory. I think that's one thing this Fullerton team truly has, is they do not look in the rearview mirror. If they go down in a set at all, they don't look back. They don't let it affect them, and they just keep going.
And surprisingly, Myung is the only one that does not have a scoring update over there on court number 1, who has just been so dominant, has won her last 5 singles matches and is 3-0 in the Big West. But obviously, knowing her competitive nature, still way too early to predict anything in that
She's been so dominant while also having these grinded out sets. She went into a max tiebreaker the other day, which is 1-10. She is constantly into that third set. But the thing is, I don't mind it because I think that's her play style. I think as a match goes on, it goes more and more into her favor. And I think you could say that about multiple athletes here. As you can see, Milena Gevorgyan getting a good spike right there, being aggressive towards the net, and Ellie Johnson coming out and giving her that high five, getting her pumped up. Milena Gevorgyan, man, she has been so impressive this year. But going back to saying Myung, like we were talking about, these grinded out sets, the athlete that she is, she's so impressive. And she wasn't the number 1 last year. She was the number 2 to Josie, who was also her partner. Josie transferred to University of Arizona, who just had an amazing game in the NCAA tournament. But Sei Myung has taken this tennis team, and it's hers. She's the number 1. When you go out there, you can clearly tell. You can tell she did so good, and she's just a leader. And we talked about earlier Nikitosh being the loud, like, I'm going to yell when I get points. I'm going to get hyped. Sei Myung's like a silent killer out there. She'll give her the fist pump. Yeah, she doesn't yell too often. She is just an elite athlete out there, and she's just so fun to watch.
And I think that's what you want from your athlete. You want someone who's going to handle business, someone who's strictly business. I mean, you were a former athlete. I am not an athlete myself, but I can tell you that whenever I do play, I kind of let the competitive nature take over. I mean business, and I love seeing that in an athlete when they don't like to talk, they like to just do their work.
Yeah, you've come out to watch some IM games. I think you've heard my voice a little bit. I'm more of the talker for my team as well.
You are quite literally willing to put your body on the line. I will give you that.
Somebody has to. And I think I see that with Caitlin Taylor, too, as we tune in the court 6. We had a rain delay in one of these matches earlier that I was calling with the great Robbie Loya, and It went to rain. Caitlin Taylor was slipping, falling, diving. She does everything she can to get to that ball, and I think that's my favorite part about her. She is more of a finesse player. As you have Diana Tovskaya, who's more power. She's going to hit it at you. She's going to make you beat her. Caitlin Taylor, the lefty, is going to put some spin on it, get you to run around, really put you in positions. She wants to draw you out and tire you out, and I think that's just her play style. And that's the fun thing to see about tennis, where, yes, this is a team sport. You need everybody to win, but each court you zoom into, you get a different view of the athlete and how they play.
Yeah, and I mean, Taylor really with this program has had tremendous success in the singles. I mean, as a freshman, she was 11-4, 13-6 as a sophomore, 5-2 in Big West play overall. And then even last year, she struggled a little bit in singles at 1-3, but she still was 6-5 overall. And so even carrying a little bit into this year as well, Caitlin Taylor 7-6 overall, but she is currently riding a 3-game singles match streak. So I mean, she's just been able to continue that in all 4 years with this program.
And I think what I've started to look at more in stats as I've progressively learned more about tennis, we can be honest here. Before getting to broadcast, I haven't really been bought in, but I've been watching so much tennis. I'm talking to my friends who have played at other colleges and stuff, and learning the game. I'm really starting to tend to look at their stats at their position. Caitlin Taylor at court 6 is 6-2. At court 4 and 5, not as well, about a 1-4 record on those two combined, right? But on court 6, she found it. And I was talking to a couple other tennis athletes I know, and I was asking, like, do you take it personally where you're at 1 through 6? Because I just think that that's such an interesting concept, right? To be at a team sport, but you're labeled as the 6. But I was talking to somebody, he said, no, I don't think that they take it personally. I didn't take it personally in particular is what he told me, because it gave me my best matchups. The coach wants to get you in the best position to get wins, not just for you, but for the team, right? As we take a break here on court 2, we're going to move over to court 1 with Sayan Mi Young and Diana DeSimone. That is still at 0-0. This has been a grinded out set. But yeah, it's not really personal, right? Because you know the coach is just trying to put you and the team in the best situation to win. And a lot of times these athletes find a spot and it clicks. For Caitlin Taylor, it's been the 6-2. For Masha Nikitosh, it's been moving from the 3 to the 4 and going 4-0, right? And I think as an athlete, you're fine to be anywhere in the 1 to 6. Yes, of course, I feel like everybody wants to be the number 1, right? It's in every sport. You want to be the number 1 option. You want to be the number 1 player. But what matchup is going to be best for you? And I think Ellie Johnson has done a really good job of finding her players and putting them in those positions to succeed and stay where they are. Sayan Mi Young and Seha Yu, 8-4, 7-3 in their respective spots. Diana Tovskaya is 2-2 at the 3 after being moved around a lot. And I think for the rest of the year, barring injury, I think this is the 6 we will see every time we see them. And honestly, they found it. As we go to a break here on court 1.
And we do have quite a bit of scoring updates for you. As you know, this sport is such a long and grueling sport, but so much can happen. As we see right here on court number 4 between Nikitosh and Malescu, where Nikitosh is currently up 2-1. We do have quite a few updates for you, though. Over on court 1, it is now 2-1 in favor of DeSimone over Myung. Over on court 2, it is Seha Yu over Costa 2-1, and then on court 3, Yana Tovskaya is trailing Hagare 1-2, and then you go over to court 4. Nikitosh is currently ahead of Malescu 2-1, which we just mentioned right here, and then court 5, Badillo is leading 2-1 over Gevorgyan, and then over at court 6, Caitlin Taylor had a 2-0 lead over Carpenter, but is now diminished in half, 2-1.
And as it was a good start for Cal State Fullerton, this is what you expect. You don't expect the Beach to back down, right? And especially with the coaching staff that they have and the athletes they have, they are not going to back down. They're a young group. And I feel like young groups like this are so hungry to prove themselves, especially against this Cal State Fullerton team. The Beach wants to beat us just as bad as we want to beat the Beach, right? So, you know, especially for these younger athletes, they want to make an impression. They want to show their coach, like, hey, in these big matches, I'm going to come out. So I think this is going to be all day, partner, where we're going to have scoring updates that are going to shock you. It's going to be up and down. Players that you think are going to play really good may come out and be a little sluggish, or maybe the other players just playing at such a level that they didn't expect to see. And that's the fun of college rivalries.
No, I would agree with you on that one, partner. I definitely think there's going to be quite a few tiebreakers in today's match.
No, I think so too.
Yeah, and we talked about the dominance for Cal State Fullerton, but for Long Beach State in the singles, I mean, they've had so much experience with tour. I mean, they are 105-70, and that goes across all their tour games, across conference, across dual, across everything. But they are 13-17 in the Big West strictly in singles, so that's where they've been lacking, and that's what's honestly cost them their last two defeats when they lost to Santa Barbara and Hawaii. So you can tell they're not going to go down easily, and they definitely, when you start such a long road trip, you definitely want to start it off on a high note. So, I mean, they're definitely going to keep grueling and grinding this one out.
And one thing that I found interesting while doing research for this game, right, was the way that Long Beach schedule was set up, right? They, like we said, they had a lot of tournaments, and we did get to see the sisters go off. The Yagare sisters did face off in Orion. They did play in Eugene, but they've kind of scattered their Big West in non-conference play, which to me, I don't understand tennis that much when it comes to matchup-wise, right? But I find it that I like the way that Ellie Johnson's schedule was set up. Bar it being late, it's probably not exactly how she wanted it, right? But the fact that the last matches of the year are all Big West play, I find it very interesting that when you look at the end of this season for this Long Beach State program, they're going Fullerton, then they're going to go out to Santa Clara, Sac State, and then end it with two Big West, kind of cutting off the middle of the season for two out-of-conference games, which are against good programs. Santa Clara and Sacramento State are really good tennis programs. I just find it really interesting as we tune into Court 6 with Caitlin Taylor and Daisy Carpenter, with Caitlin Taylor having the lead 2-1.
See another impressive rally here going on. That one will go out right there.
And Caitlin Taylor has such a good eye for those. I feel like so many times when we've been watching Caitlin Taylor's courts, a lot of her points aren't going to be her spiking down on you, right? It's going to be her tailing that line, hitting it just out, or grinding the match out or the point out so far that Daisy Carpenter's going to just miss it out and kind of put her out of position. And that's the beauty of Caitlin Taylor's game. She just really has so much spin. And one thing we always talk about in the booth up here is imagine going out there and playing these athletes. I don't think I'm going to touch the ball against Caitlin Taylor. I think she's going to know how to move it just to get it out of my way completely.
Yeah, no, my backhand, I'd be lucky if I could reach it even to the net. And, you know, we are privileged with getting such a good angle, but when you're on the court, it is such a different experience.
As this match goes to 3-1, that point by Caitlin Taylor is what I'm talking about. She sees Daisy Carpenter pushing the net and just lightly taps it over her head, just over where Daisy Carpenter's racket can get. And that's the thing, right? When you watch a Yana Tovskaya match, she's going to beat the ball into you. She's going to beat you with power, but Taylor's going to finesse you, and she's going to make you work. And I think that's just so fun, and that's why she's one of the broadcast's favorite players.
Yeah, and you mentioned Taylor and Carpenter both listed at 5'4", so try to use all 5'4" of her vert right there, but I could not reach it.
As we do have a scoring update, on Court 5, it is now 3-1 in favor of Pamela Badillo. We have the Court 6 update here, and on Court 3, Yana Tovskaya is down 3-1 to Thea Yagare. Big West Player of the Week coming out fast today in singles, up 3-1. As we seem to have a little bit of a break here on Court 6, coaches talking to each other, we're going to move on over to Court number 2 with Seha Yu up 2-1 over Cecilia Costa. And partner, I think we can't get enough of talking about how impressive Seha Yu has been this year.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to focus on her as the player to watch for this game, but obviously it's just so difficult with Myung and her. I mean, Seha Yu, Robbie highlighted her in their last game against, 2 games ago against Dartmouth. I mean, it's just impressive what she's been able to do. I mean, 7-3, 3-0 in the Big West, really locking down that number 2 spot for Fullerton, winning her last 6 singles matches. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. There's just what can you say about her that hasn't already been said?
Exactly. I always find it fun to see who our play-by-play is picking for players of the week or to watch, right? Because as the color commentator, right, like I kind of have my idea of who it should be, and then I get it, and a lot of times it's the same player. So like even today, when you told me that we were doing Saiyan, I was like, yep, nah, I get it. I wouldn't have it any other way. She has been the one to watch for us. Say how you close second. And I feel like you can highlight any player on this Fullerton team right now with how well they've been, or how well they've done in singles, right? Nikitosh 4-0 at the 4 spot. Say how you 7-3, right? Like, we have just such an impressive team. Milena Gevorgian's only lost one match at the 5, right? So there's just so many players we can highlight. Trust me, if we could highlight the whole team, we would.
Yeah, and you meant, I mean, especially for you of late, it's just been her last 2 matches she won in 2 sets dominantly, 6-1, 6-4 in Dartmouth, and then yesterday 6-3, 6-1. I mean, went unfinished against Drake because Fullerton had already secured the 4th point, or the match point there. And then even before that, you go back to Hawaii, who's so good, won 6-2, 6-1. So of late, she's been so dominant. Obviously, she had a lot of like more closely contested battles early on in the season, but of late she's just been on an absolute heater.
Yeah, and that's just so fun, right? As on court 5, Milena Gevorgian is down 4-1. But what I've slowly learned through this season, Colin, is never count Milena Gevorgian out. I feel like there's been so many matches this year where she'll go down 4-1 early in set 1, and then I'll kind of start focusing on other courts because it's the natural instinct, right? Like, we are a home broadcast. I'm going to kind of focus on the ones that are winning a little more for Cal State Fullerton, right? And then out of nowhere, I'll look down, and it'll be 5-4, Gevorgian up, and it's just like, how do you do it? How do you constantly just find it mid-match? And that's just kind of the athlete that she is. She's never going to give up. She's always going to try to find that thing, and when she does find it and it finally clicks, look out, because it is not going to be fun for the person on the other side of the court.
Yeah, and I think that also goes to show the versatility of play styles that we have here at Cal State Fullerton. I mean, you mentioned Nikitosh and then Yanotovskaya, who are like the power hitters, but then you have, I guess you could compare, if you're a boxing fan, you could compare Caitlin Taylor to kind of like a Floyd Mayweather, very technical, very defensive, but is always there at the end, able to give what she needs. So I think it's just the versatility that you have on this team that has made them so successful when they have to go out on their own in singles.
Yeah, 100%. I think that versatility is kind of a detriment to coaches that move players around. Like, I'm all for it. I love the chess match, but it's kind of interesting, right? Like, you kind of see these coaches come in and be like, wait, the way this player plays, I want to have her go up against her. And for a while, I was like, oh, that's going to be a detriment to Fullerton. Don't you think? Like, that they kind of don't move around? Nope. Just go out there in singles and get wins anyways. And I feel like that's one thing I've noticed is I am constantly proved wrong by these coaches, and that's why I'm up here and they're down there.
Exactly. And you see we're going to move over to court 5 with Gevorgian and Badillo. Currently, Badillo holds the lead 4-1 still. So Fullerton in a little bit of a hole. But, you know, you just mentioned you can never rule Gevorgian out, especially just in this first set.
100%. And that's the big thing I've always realized. Like, the first set is really important because it sets the tone, right? But just because set 1 doesn't go well doesn't mean an athlete's not going to go out there set 2 and 3 and get it done. There's been plenty of times this season where Gevorgian will go out and, or not even just Gevorgian, anyone on this team will go out and lose a set 6-2 and then come back next set and win 6-1. It's just, tennis is a game of runs. Just like, I always say that when I watch basketball or when I commentate basketball, I'm like, oh, it's a game of runs. It's a game of runs. Tennis is the same way. It's such a momentum sport. Once the momentum swings your way, it's really about finding how to keep it on your side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point that you bring up, that it is, in a way, it is very similar to basketball in terms of the runs, but the one thing that makes tennis so difficult is that you have to rely on yourself. You don't have, when you're a point guard and you're running the offense, you got to rely on your other 4, your 2 forwards, your other guard, and then your big man. But when you're on the court, it's just you. It's like you got to be in the right mindset to be able to bring yourself back into it. And I could just say, like, the reason I'm in here is because obviously I lack the athletic ability, of course. But also another thing is just I would get in my own head so many times, and I can't imagine, like, the mindset of just, like, when you're down early and you're still able to come back, just to get inside the mind of Gevorgian a little bit to understand, like, what is it that she's got that makes her want to, like, that she knows even if she's down, she's not out of it every single time.
God, I wish. I'm so impressed by their mentality. And every time I've had a chance to talk to one of the athletes, it kind of slips my mind because you're just so impressed that they got the win that they did. You kind of forget to ask, like, how do you not get down, right? And I think that's a big thing about this team is they don't get down. I feel like they go down early and they kind of thrive in it, right? They kind of thrive off being behind. It kind of gives them that little push. And part of me loves it, but part of me hates it because if you go down early against a really good athlete, it's really hard to come back. But every time I think that, they prove me wrong. And that's what this Fullerton team has done all year, is just prove me wrong. And honestly, keep doing it. Please. I love watching the girls get out there and get these wins and grind out these points. It's just who they are.
Yep, and there's a lot of scoring updates we do have for you in these last few moments here. We're going to swing it over to court number 6, where Caitlin Taylor is now still in control over Carpenter. She's up 4-1. Meanwhile, over on court 5, Badillo is ahead of Gevorgian, still 4-1. Over on court number 4, we have Malescu holds a narrow lead over Nikitash, 3-2. And then we have a new update on court number 1. It is now 3-2 in favor of Myung over De Simone. And then also 3-2 lead for Seha Yu over Costa on court number 2. And then court 3, Higare, of course, Big West Player of the Week, leading Yanotovskaya 4-1. So, I mean, Dylan, it's pretty spread out right now.
Oh, it's going to be a grind. It's going to be a battle. And that's kind of what we expected coming into this, right? It's the beach game. It's who I feel both these teams are. When I was looking through a lot of these team stats, a lot of their matches have been so close, right? Cecilia Costa went 2 sets into an extra time against UC Santa Barbara, who is the 50th ranked team as well. So Big West tennis is getting active in the rankings. On court 3 against UC Santa Barbara, they went 3 sets, and it's just been grinds. I feel like both these teams really grind out, go deep into games, and that's what is so fun to watch, right? I feel like when you're watching tennis, I think it's the same with any sport. You don't really want to watch a blowout, right? Like, of course, if you're a fan, you want to beat every team by 30. But also, what's the fun in that? I think the fun is getting deep into these sets, kind of getting that grind and kind of getting to the point where, hey, this athlete's got to have ice in their veins if they're going to end up with this win.
And, you know, it's something you want to see for Cal State Fullerton. Of course, I mean, you and Robbie have mentioned it before. The way last season ended was very heartbreaking, of course, losing the Big West Championship to number 5 Cal Poly, and it came down to the number 5 singles match where Gevorgian lost 4-6 in her 3rd set. So it was just very heartbreaking loss. So the fact that they've been so dominant in singles, when how the last season ended, you know they're going to carry that kind of aggression into this year. They're going to have that chip on their shoulder.
And I think that is just like a testament to the Big West. Both of those teams weren't really projected to be there, right? They were both lower seeds. There were a lot of upsets. And that's kind of what I've been preaching throughout the year is I care more about how the sets go than who wins the match, right? Where, yeah, if you win a set dominantly, I'm so happy. But if you get into these grinded out sets and you can grind out these wins, I would much prefer Cal State Fullerton to be battle tested going into the playoffs so that when they get into these matches, they're the 4 seed right now, which means they would probably end up playing the 6-7 seed area, right? That's where Cal State Fullerton was last season when they made it to the finals, right? So you always have to be prepared. You can't lose sight of the goal, right? Just because, oh, we're projected better than these people, we're going to go out there and get the win. No, you got to stay in the grind. You have to stay in that mindset. And I think that's a big thing that I'm looking for as watching this team through the regular season.
And I feel like there are certainly a lot of sports where you can, like basketball and especially football, you can look on paper and it usually plays out to kind of what you would expect. Whereas with sports like baseball and tennis, it's not necessarily like sure projections, but it's such a team and individual sport as well that it's just so hard to base your projections early on in the season.
100%. And as this court's on a break, we're going to go to one as well. We'll be right back here in Fullerton, California on ESPN California. We are on Titan courts with Long Beach State versus the Cal State Fullerton Titans. And that break, partner, was actually the end of that set with Badillo taking it 6-1 over Milena Gevorgian.
And, you know, we've been talking a lot about Gevorgian and her ability to come back. Obviously, she's been fairly dominant in singles of late, but you can never rule her out as she's going into this second set here.
Yeah, partner, and as this second set begins, I find it really interesting the way that this day is shaken out, right? I feel like with it being 3-2 on court 1, Sei and Mi Young in the lead, it is 3-3 on court 2 with Seha Yu versus Cecilia Costa. On court 3, Diana Yanatovskaya has a hole to dig herself out of, down 4-1 against Daria Milescu. On court 4, it is Masha Nikitosh. Or, sorry, let me check that. On Diana Yanatovskaya versus Thea Yagare, she's down 4-1. Oh, check that, partner. Court 3, Yagare gets a 6-1 victory over Diana Yanatovskaya. On court 2, like I said, Seha Yu's 3-3 versus Cecilia Costa. Court 4 is 4-4 with Masha Nikitosh and Daria Milescu. On court number 6, it is 4-3 for Caitlin Taylor and Daisy Carpenter.
Yeah, now two of the first set matches have gone in favor to the beach. So Fullerton, as you mentioned, is going to have their work cut out for them. Excuse me. But I think if you're for Fullerton right now, you're definitely eyeing court 6, where Caitlin Taylor has that 4-3 lead. Try to get Fullerton a little bit of momentum and try to win a first set here.
Yeah, I think a big thing that I tend to look at when doing these, as we're going to tune in here to, I believe, court number 5 again. Yes, court number 5, with it being, I believe, 0-0 in the second set. A big thing I tend to look at with the scoring is how many wins does each team need. So Long Beach only needs 3 wins to take the match in singles, right? So what I tend to look for is, all right, what 4 courts for Fullerton are going to get them the wins, right? And I kind of in doing that, you're looking at it for Long Beach like, oh, which 3 are going to be the main ones for them. And as of right now, getting 2 wins early on court 3 and 5 for the beach is huge, right? You're really getting to the point in that where, okay, this is the 2 that are really looking to get those wins, are really looking to put the team forward. And if you're a teammate looking at those 2, it's, oh, my teammates have already won a set. I got to get that out there and do it myself too.
Yeah, no surprise that it was Hagari and Badillo that kind of got it. You know, they were both entering this set 2 and 3 in the Big West so far, but Badillo is 6-5 at that number 5. At the number 5 spot, and then Hagari, the Big West Player of the Week, is 7-3 at the number 3 spot. Both coming off losses recently, so they're nearing turning it around for them at least.
As we tune in here to court 4 with Masha Nikitosh and Daria Milescu, it's a battle. It's 4-4, and this is kind of what I've come to expect out of Masha Nikitosh, where she's going to grind out these points and she's going to get hype. And honestly, that's so hard to face, in my opinion, to face an athlete who's getting out there, getting gritty, getting loud. It kind of annoys you a little bit as this one goes to break as well. So much action, so much going on. It's so hard to keep track of where everything's at, Colin.
Of course, and, you know, still, I would say one thing that we can eye on is court number 1 right now. It's still 3-2 in favor of Myung over De Simone, but that has been such a tight battle. I mean, you can tell it's the lowest scoring one. We've already had 2 sets finish up, and then the next closest ones are 4-3 on courts 2 and 6. So, I mean, they're having a full-on battle out there over on court number 1 right now.
And Masha Nikitosh, with that point, took it 5-4 for Fullerton, trying to get that first set in Fullerton's favor. And everywhere around, the other 4 courts that are still in that first set are favored towards Fullerton. Yes, they're a little bit of a grind, but currently they're favored towards Fullerton. And that's what you kind of want to see as a coach, right? Like, where can I get these wins? As we tune into court 1, Sei and Mi Young and Diana De Simone, you kind of, I feel you look towards your top 2 and have them set the tone, right? Sei and Mi Young getting that point. They're going to break again. Just so much action. It's hard to tune in at the right times. And it's just, it's such a grind today. I'm so excited. 4-3 on multiple courts, 3-2 on multiple courts. We're really getting a lot of action. back here on court 4. It's 5-4 in favor of Cal State Fullerton's Masha Nikitosh, and really trying to see if she can get that first point on the board, first set on the board in singles for Cal State Fullerton.
Of course, and we mentioned some other Big West action that is currently going on right now. It's obviously been such a tight battle on some of these courts right now. But obviously you have Fullerton taking on Long Beach, but of course UC Davis, who Cal State Fullerton just saw yesterday, is on the road again today, taking on CSUN. They started out at 11 a.m., same time as this match right here today. And then Santa Barbara and Hawaii, the two teams that Long Beach has lost to of late, are going to be going off against each other all the way over in Honolulu at 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Such a fun trip for UC Santa Barbara again to go out to Hawaii. I always envy the teams who get to go do that while we stick at home calling games, but hard to complain being able to talk about sports for a couple hours, a couple days a week, don't you think, Colin?
I will say, though, with the unfortunate thing is Hawaii will be leaving the Big West after this next collegiate season. We already announced that Cal Baptist will be coming to the Big West, so has some good competition there, but, that is going to hurt the recruiting process a little bit just because, I think a big selling point to a lot of athletes could be, hey, free Hawaii trip.
Unfortunately, I don't believe as of right now, from the research I've done, that Cal Baptist has a tennis team. So I'm interested to see how that stacks up for women's tennis, but my favorite part of Cal Baptist joining is that UCR-Cal Baptist rivalry is really ignited now. Me and a couple of my family members went to that game for basketball, and it got hyped. So Cal Baptist joining, I think, is really good for them and kind of good for the competition in the Big West. It's going to be fun. There's a couple other schools that I've heard rumblings about. Can't really say anything much, of course, but I'm really excited to see how the Big West shapes up after this season.
Per air quote sources, but, we got to – nothing confirmed yet, so we, of course – are not going to spoil that on the air if we believe it to be true.
Exactly. Source is.
Source is, air
quotes. As we always
yes.
say. As you can see some of the coaches getting really active with some of the players. We're going to tune back into court 1. On the close side is Deanna DeSimone. Far side is Sayin Mi Young, who is up 5-2 now. Just really proving that dominance that we talk about with her. She is just such a great athlete, especially to watch in person. I remember before I had the luxury of calling tennis, I got to go out there and watch them play first. I had just got back from a trip, and I was in the air. I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop and say hi to my favorite student-run program, Titan Sports Network. All my co-workers, interns, so fun. Get to see everybody. And we were all watching, and we were all like, oh, wait. This girl's unreal. And we were watching all the courts, and we kind of got in a trance watching her play. It feels like nothing's out of reach for her.
I mean, you just saw that right there. Made that out of reach on that last rally right there. DeSimone could not return that, unable to receive it. And that was just such a powerful hit. She was able to just get it right over here, just barely kind of close to that line right there, but so easily was able to win that serve. But it's just the versatility, like I've mentioned, that they have is very impressive.
And the versatility that Sayin has, I feel like I've seen her power play athletes, and I've seen her coverage play, and I've seen her go side to side. I've seen her try to move players around. You can't put Sayin in a box. I feel like there's some athletes that come out here and they have their game plan, and they're going to shove their game plan into you until it works, right? Sayin will go with the flow of a match. She'll play a coverage game. She'll play a power game. She'll play against the net. She'll sit back all the way against the cage. I've seen her jump up for a ball at the cage above her head and get it in and end up winning the point later through the rally. She is just someone who never, ever gives up. As that's a really good drop shot there from DeSimone. And I think I get to talk to some people about tennis now that I'm doing. They're like, how do you like tennis? I've never seen you as a tennis guy. I have fully bought into the sport through broadcasting. And seeing a good drop shot is so awesome. I remember watching Caitlin Taylor, one of our interns on social media, got a great up-close video. And she was playing up close to the net. It hit the ball and just dropped right in. It was just so beautiful.
Drop shots are always so satisfying. But, it's just one of those things that you see it a lot in other sports as well. It's just sometimes the little hits are what get you. It's like you obviously want to be able to spike it. You see it in volleyball all the time as well. It's just like you want to be able to spike it. You want to be able to powerhouse it. But sometimes just kind of faking your defender out a little bit it just goes such a long way, and that's why the drop shot is just always so effective.
Oh, yeah, and I got a scoring update for you guys. So we're here 5-2 with Say and me and Diana DeSimone. On court 2, it is still 4-4 with Say Hayu and Cecilia Costa having a true battle. Over on court 3, it's still 0-0 in that second set between Diana Yanatovskaya and Thea Yagare. On court 4, Masha Nikitosh up 5-4, as we can see right here. We're just tuned in. Over on court 5 right here, it is 1-2. Melanie Gavorian is down 1-2 to Pamela Badillo. And on court 6, it's 4-4 with Kayleen Taylor and Daisy Carpenter.
And over on court 1, now I just mentioned it was 5-2. Now it is 5-3. So DeSimone was able to make a little bit of a comeback effort, but still, Myung is still up 5-3 over on court number 1.
And that's been the interesting part of this tennis season, is kind of like, I don't envy the directors at all, having to find what courts to pick and what points are happening. It's because we've always talked about it in our pre-meetings. Let's try to get the end of every set, right? We want to get to that fifth point matches, but sometimes you'll have a 5th-point match. The other day, we were watching Milena Gavorian. She was down 5-2 and came all the way back and won, and it felt like we watched her for 45 minutes straight. And it's like, we kind of can't leave, because if she drops a set, this match is over. But she just keeps grinding, keeps coming back, and we kind of watched her get a full comeback, which was really interesting. But also, you really want to get other athletes involved. As you can see, that one bounced off the net, and Nikitosh just kind of throws her arms up and goes, "What can I really do?" And as we're here with Masha Nikitosh, I really, really like the way she plays, right? Like I've talked about, just the fire she plays with as she hits one off the cage there. See, that's what, like, getting emotional, like kind of showing that emotion. I like it. I've always been a fan of athletes being themselves and like really showing who they are. You kind of get a look into how the athlete feels about not the sport per se, because just because you're stoic doesn't mean you don't care. But those fiery athletes, those vocal athletes, you could just tell how much they love it and how hard they are on themselves. It kind of gives you a look into the mentality of an athlete.
We still don't have any other scoring updates for you. We're going to keep you here on court 4, of course, between Nikitosh and Malescu. Looks like they are taking a little bit of a break at the moment.
As we're going to tune back into court 1 here, we're going to try to catch the end of this Say and Me Young and Diana DeSimone match, or set, sorry. On the close side, we have DeSimone. Far side, you have Say and Me Young. And you look on that right side, we got some fans today, Colin.
Exactly. I mean, spring break just started for a lot of people. It's a beautiful day outside. I mean, I can't say enough how amazing the weather has been today. It's been so gloomy these past couple of days. So, it's still a little overcast out there, but today's a perfect day for some tennis.
When I was driving for work the other day, man, it was raining all morning, and today we got a beautiful 67-degree day. The clouds are rolling in and out, but it's mostly sunny for the day. Wind is hovering around 8 to 12 miles an hour, and that's gonna play an effect since, as you can see, we play outdoors. That wind plays a really big effect. I remember when we were playing Dartmouth, the Ivy League, I believe all the teams in the Ivy League play indoors due to snow being on the East Coast, right? And the wind was playing a big effect for Dartmouth. It felt like they weren't getting the balls that they usually would, and it's because of the wind. And tuning into court 6, someone who's going to use the wind to her advantage heavily is Kayleen Taylor, but kind of dug herself a hole, was up early, and is now down 5-4 against Daisy Carpenter.
Yep, and you mentioned the Beach are never going to go down without a fight, of course. Kayleen Taylor, who has been one of the many players in singles of late, who's been on an absolute heater as well, having a little bit of a tough time in this first set. But of course, with Caitlin Taylor, you know, she's won her last 3 singles. We mentioned that before, really holding down that number 6 spot. Carpenter as well. I mean, she's 4 and 5 at the number 6, but she has won her last 2 singles matches. So she's been kind of carrying that momentum over into today's match.
Yeah, I'm really, really curious to see how she bounces back from losing that lead. I feel like I've really seen her come back more than lose the lead. So it's really interesting to kind of see the way that it plays out. As we have some updates, Saein Mi Young takes set 1, 6-3 over Diana DeSimone. Court 2, Seha Yu has fallen behind 5-4 to Cecilia Costa. On court 4, Masha Nikitosh is up 5-4. Court 2 in set 2, Milena Gevorgian and Pamela Badillo are tied 2-2. And court 6 we have right here 5-4.
Yeah, we're really starting to see in this match, things are really starting to ramp up a little bit. Of course, obviously Big West play for Fullerton. I mean, you mentioned how scattered it is for Long Beach. For Fullerton, it's going to be nothing but Big West from here on out, and then they've got a massive road trip coming up ahead. So certainly, this is kind of what you were expecting so far.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited to see how this conference play goes, as how it progresses. One big thing I love to see from this team is how they grind this one out, right? And I don't want to project poorly for doubles. I think that they can click. I think we've seen them come back. It's about starting from the jump with doubles, right? But in singles, I kind of like the way that they go. I like the way that it kind of ebbs and flows.